Yes.
Shall we start?
Yes.
So, a very good evening to all. Warm welcome again to yet a session of the webinar series from FOGSI ICOG Yogi. And as has been customary in all the previous ones, again, thanks Dr. Lakshmi for taking up this subject. Very few have the courage to take this up, and I'm really glad to see that there is a handful of group of people who are joining in consistently in every program. So that's really great. So today focuses on the publishing tips and tricks. Next, please, Dr. Ranjana. So please let's go to the next one. Next slide. So we are very happy to have Dr. Lakshmi with us. She is the chairperson of ICOG, National Corresponding Editor, Journal of Obstetrics and Gynaecology of India. She is the National Corresponding Secretary of the Association of the Medical Women of India, and you can see the entire slide is filled and much more. So warm welcome to you, Dr. Lakshmi. Please, I request you to give a welcome address.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Radhika, for your kind words. Friends, I'm so happy to be back with you all once again with our FOGSI ICOG Yogi Research Methodology web series. And today we are discussing a very important aspect, that is publishing tips and tricks. So on behalf of ICOG, I would like to welcome, acknowledge, and say thanks to the convener, Dr. A.G. Radhika, along with co-conveners Dr. Vaishali Kurde and Dr. Ranjana Sinha, who month after month they are coming out with a very interesting module on such a dry subject, that is research methodology. I also would like to welcome our experts. Dr. Sanjay Gupte sir is here, Dr. Manju Puri and Dr. Madhuri Patil, who will be chairing the sessions, along with Dr. Abharani Sinha and Dr. Anahita Chauhan. And as Dr. Radhika has already told you, that the topics covered today will they are very important, right? Like how to write your paper, how to write results, then which journals to choose, why articles are getting rejected, that will be by our editor emeritus of Yogi, Dr. Suvarna. Then data sharing, none other than Dr. A.G. Radhika herself will be saying, and publication ethics, who else can say than our editor-in-chief of Yogi, that is Dr. Geeta Balsarkar. So friends, without wasting much time, I don't want to come in between you and your learning. Let's start with our today's scientific session. So happy learning to we all. Radhika, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we are extremely happy to be supported by the entire team, FOGSI and Yogi. So we have Dr. Rishikesh Pai, who is the president, Dr. Madhuri Patel, who is the Secretary General, and we have Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, whom she's the editor-in-chief, and she's also going to be speaking in this program. Next, please. Dr. Suvarna Khadilkar. She is also one of the speakers today. We are again honored to have her, and everybody is going to get a set of introductions even during the course of the program. Next, please. Next slide, please.
Who is sharing?
Dr. Rana?
Who is sharing? Mitali sharing?
Ranjana. Ranjana, please change the slide.
Just
Should I? Yeah. So I'm also very happy to introduce my team. So I'm, basically would be completely not able to work without my two pillars, who are Dr. Vaishali Korde. She's the professor and head at Myanmar Medical College, Pune, consultant at the Critical Care Obstetrics Ruby Hall Clinic, Pune. And as you can see, she is very well awarded and accredited, and she is a person of great eminence, and she's got all the right material to be helping us out in this program. Next, please. Dr. Ranjana Sinha, she is the former head of Gynaecology at the East Central Railway Hospital, executive member of ISOPAP, former joint secretary of ISOPAP, co-chairperson in the Practical Ops Committee, and she's received the National Award for Outstanding Service in Indian Railways by Government of India. Next, please. So with that, I hand over the stage to Dr. Ranjana to go on with the proceedings of the session. Over to you, Dr. Ravi. Unmute yourself, please.
Yes, madam. Thank you very much, madam, for keeping me with you in this prestigious webinar series. So a very good evening to the August gathering. FOGSI ICOG Jogi webinar series has come a long way, all because of continuous endeavors of ICOG chair, Dr. Lakshmi Srikhande ma'am, and series convener, Dr. A.G. Radhika ma'am. Today, our theme of discussion is publishing tips and tricks. And we have a galaxy of eminent speakers who will enrich us on different aspects of this subject. Beginning our first session, let me invite our esteemed chairpersons. As a chairperson, we have Professor Ambuja ma'am. Ma'am is a retired professor and HOD. I think ma'am is not coming.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but ma'am is a retired professor at HOD Institute of OPGYN, Osmania Medical College, Hyderabad, a very eminent personality, but we could not have her today in this webinar due to some unavoidable reason. Then we have Dr. Manju Puri ma'am. Ma'am is Director, Professor and former HOD, Department of OBGYN, LHMC, New Delhi. Ma'am is also National Coordinator, Practical Obstetric Committee, FOGSI, and Madam is also member of many technical groups of Government of India, WHO, UNICEF. So, Madam, I welcome you to this session as is our esteemed chairperson. And next we have we have a very FOGSI stalwart, Dr. Sanjay Gupte sir. Sir has the honor of being FICO Ethics Committee Chair and FOGSI. So has been FOGSI President in 2010 and President DIPSI in 2013. Sir is also Secretary General of World Gestosis Organization and Chairman Technical Research Committee of Indian Council of Medical Research. Sir is also National Coordinator, National Eclampsia Registry, and Sir is also Director of Gupte Hospital and Center for Research in Reproduction. With these three extremely learned chairpersons, let us begin our first session. And at the same time, I would request our audience to kindly place their queries in chat box, if any, and may I now request Dr. Sanjay Gupte sir, as Ambuja ma'am is not there, to introduce our first speaker, that is Dr. Prabdeep Kaur. Sir, kindly introduce Dr. Prabdeep Kaur.
Right. First of all, thank you, Dr. Lakshmi and Dr. Parag and the ICOG team for having me here as the chairperson of this session. As we always say that we do a lot of clinical work in our country, but hardly document much and least publish it. And I think that's why it's high time now, if we have to make a mark in the world of whatever we are doing, I think we need to learn publishing. And publishing one needs to learn, especially in today's world, because there are so many nitty-gritties of the things. And I think we need people like our first speaker, Dr. Prabdeep Kaur, who will guide us through these nitty-gritties. She's a scientist, head division of non-communicable diseases, ICMR, National Institute of Epidemiology, Chennai. She's a physician and public health professional involved in research and teaching and implementation science for scaling based public health interventions, which is, I think, very important thing, that we have a lot of public health schemes, but implemented is a very difficult task in our country due to various challenges that we have. And she's also a member of the WHO Global Cervical Elimination Expert Group and principal investigator of India Hypertension Control Initiative. So, a lot of kudos to her credit, with a lot of more than 80 publications. And I think that's why she's the right person to guide us regarding the publication. So please, ma'am, go ahead and with your talk.
Thank you all. Thank you for the kind introduction. And I would again like to thank Dr. Radhika. I have been there in another symposium earlier. I truly appreciate this effort to improve the research quality and scientific writing in the obstetric and gynecology field. And so without wasting any further time, I will get going. So I hope I'm visible. Slides are visible and right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, great. So I think today my topic is that I should be focusing on background, objectives, and methods. And I have 15 minutes. I think we are in time. We are actually ahead of time. So I will try to keep up with it. And if there are any questions, I'll keep 2-3 minutes to answer those questions. So before I get started with the sections which were told to me, I actually wanted to highlight the importance of scientific writing. Quite often we do excellent work, as someone said, like, they always say that we have best clinical material in the world, but we are not publishing proportionate to the amount of work we do and the amount of material we have. So it's really nothing to do with our inability to sort of create good information, but I think it's really putting it or packaging it, what is suitable for publishing in peer-reviewed literature. And scientific writing is an art itself, and it cannot be done by listening to a presentation. It can only be done by practicing and by repeatedly doing. So I think all those who have joined this webinar, I would encourage them that just take the plunge. Unless you get started, you are not going to learn it, but you need to keep certain basic principles in mind when you're writing. And I think today's talks will be focusing on those principles. So first section of a manuscript is what we call as a background. It really background, or some journals call it introduction. It's basically the rationale of why you did the study in the first place. So usually what happens, and when we start reading any background, people would say, let's say you're all in the field of gynecology, so you may say that cervical cancer is a very major public health problem. So that's not how you should start your introduction. Your introduction should be always driven by data, and it should be only highlighting the burden of the problem that you are going to describe in terms of what is given in the literature. So you always need to start with quantifying. You need to say, let's say, cervical cancer is first or second leading cause of death due to cancer among women in India. So by quantifying this information, you make it more specific and you make it more focused to your topic. Now, most important things I will focus on. Whenever you start writing your introduction, it has to always go from general to specific. So when you open it, when you open the first paragraph, it has to be very, very generic. It has to describe overall what the problem is. Then you have to move on to tell what is known about it and what is not known about it. And are there any gaps in the knowledge which you try to fill with your study, which you want to write it into this manuscript. And you have to really make it justifiable that this was the reason I did the study. So the flow is really important. So let's say you did a study on, let's say, some diagnostic methods about cervical cancer. I'm just giving an example because that's one area of gynecology I'm kind of familiar with. So if you say, let's say, did a study on diagnostic methods for cervical cancer. So you'll open your paragraph by saying cervical cancer is second leading cause of death due to cancer among women in India. And it's easy to detect. And there are several methods which can be used for early detection. These methods are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you would refer to the appropriate literature for each of these sentences. And then let's say your study looked at one particular method. So then what you would do is you will go on to say that, okay, these are the methods available. And of these methods, I wanted to understand, let's say, how HPV DNA, which is one of the method testing, can be used for screening program in my setting. So then you zoom down. So you start with cervical cancer, you start with what are the screening methods, and then you go on to say, why you wanted to study this particular method. And the reason could be because you feel, okay, this is a method which is a gold standard, and there is not enough data to show whether I can use this method in context of primary care in India or something like that. And you may want to give some sort of reference to the literature, if there is any, saying that, yes, this method has been tried in these similar settings in other countries. Preferably, you could give example from low middle income countries and then go on to say, okay, so this is why, okay, I know this method is considered a gold standard. It has been tried in other settings. I want to try it in my setting, and that's why I did this study. So then, as the reader goes from reading your first line to end of your introduction, they should naturally feel justified. Okay, now we know why this person did this study. So the last para of your introduction is always objectives. You end with the objectives. Every sentence that you write in your introduction should have a reference. On an average, you should not write more than 3 paragraphs for introduction, because introduction is a small section. So if you take, let's say, most journals will ask you to do double space times New Roman. So your introduction should be 1 full page, and then maybe few lines more beyond 1 page. It should never go beyond 1.5 page with a 12 font double space. So that's about it. So you need to be very focused. It's not a very long one, but it has to be a very focused one. Now, what you should not do in the introduction is fill pages. Like, I review for many journals, and we are tired of reading introduction. Like, okay, let's come to the point, right? So don't write too much. As I clearly said, stick to not more than 1.5 page double space 12 font. Making undocumented statement, giving opinions. I think this is a good method, and that's why I want to try it. You cannot say that. Going on writing about burden of disease. See, your study may not be about burden of disease. You may give burden of disease in your initial 1 or 2 sentences to give like an opening statement and to orient people to the overall topic. But you need to quickly jump on to what your real topic is. So ideally, your first para can talk about burden, but your second para should then move on to more specific. The third para should really be the rationale, and then ending with objectives. Giving too much of literature. We should not think that, okay, I read 10 articles, so they all need to be there. You need to pick the most relevant information and put it out there. Giving a lot of old references, historical details is not required. And of course, we know that, plagiarism in any section of the manuscript is really problematic. And since most of the time, introduction, you are only referring to the literature, people think they can copy paste. So now you should be aware that there are plagiarism softwares, and all the journals run these manuscripts through that software. Like as ICMR scientists, it's mandatory for us to run all our manuscript through a plagiarism software even before we submit. Otherwise, even our director will not approve it. So you have to ideally run a plagiarism software like Authenticate and so on. I think these kind of softwares can be provided through the society or through the medical schools, or there are also other online tools available. So overall, how an introduction should look like. You start with what is known and what is not known. Why is it that this issue is important? Why is it that you decided to work on it? Move on to the regional perspective, then local. So for instance, if you want, let's say, I'm going back to the same example, you start with cervical cancer as problem, XX women affected globally. India has 1/4 of the global burden. Then you go on, okay, these are the tests available. And we know that in India, let's say, most people are using VIA or let's say pap smear. Then go on to the local issue. Like, let's say you are doing this study in a particular hospital or in a particular setting, and then you talk about cervical cancer in your setting. What are the screening test or diagnostic test used in your setting? And then end with the objectives. So this is just an example which shows that even the Nobel Prize winner did not write long introductions. So now coming to the objective, which is the last para of your introduction, it need to be very brief, and it should really align to your protocol. So quite often what happens is when we read the whole manuscript, we find that what is presented in the results and what is given in the method was not mentioned in the objectives. So once you have completed your study, you revisit your objectives and make sure there is an alignment between your objectives and what you actually did. So in general, we know that there are few types of studies that we do in medical research. We can do descriptive studies. Within descriptive, we can do like cross-sectional surveys, then we do case control studies, or we may do intervention studies like RCTs. So depending on the type of study you have done, you need to pick the appropriate language for your objectives. So for instance, if your study was looking at burden of something, then you should be saying, okay, we estimated the prevalence of XYZ. Maybe your study, you asked, let's say, women about why you did not participate in the screening program, which means you're just describing the reasons. Then your objective should say, we described the reason for lack of participation in screening program. If your study looked at risk factors for something, then your objective should start with the verb like determine. We determined the risk factors for, let's say, cervical cancer or breast cancer and so on. So the language of objective depend on the type of study design you have. And therefore, you need to clearly reflect on your methods and then clean up your objectives language. You can have more than one objective, but you must say primary objective first, and then that can be followed by secondary or what we call as sub-objectives. Now coming to the section of methods. Now the commonest problem I see when we review the manuscripts for various journals is that methods is written like a story. It doesn't have the subheadings. So just follow the subheadings. If you follow the subheadings, you will not miss anything. And you can also make sure that you yourself go through this checklist and you have covered all the important points. So these are the proposed subheadings for any method section. So you need to have objectives followed by what is your study design? You ended with objectives, then you have study design. So the study design, as I said, it should not be like it is a prospective study. It is a retrospective study. You don't say like that. So you need to go back to the hierarchy of, type of studies, right? So is it descriptive? Is it analytical? Is it intervention? And then within that, what your study design is. So study design, when we say study type, should clearly mention, is it cross-sectional? Is it case control? Is it cohort? Is it randomized control trial? Is it quasi-experimental study? Whatever it be. But it should correctly mention that particular type of study. Then coming to your sampling. So there is sampling strategy and sample size. Both should be given under the sampling. So what is meaning of sampling strategy? Sampling strategy means how did you select your respondents? So for instance, did you do simple random sampling? Did you do, maybe you selected all the consecutive women visiting your clinic and included them in the study. So that's your sampling strategy. And then you need to give sample size, how many respondents you have included in your study. Next comes the most important section, which is data collection. In the data collection section, you need to clearly mention what data you collected, what were the variables. For instance, you might have used a questionnaire, or you might have done any kind of lab method, or might have done any kind of observational method, or you could have done some clinical technique. So you need to mention clearly in detail what all those methods you have used under data collection. And then in case of, if you are using any particular lab method, also remember to mention which machine was used, which reagent was used, and giving appropriate reference to that. Coming to the data analysis, you need to mention how did you analyze your data, how was it stored, and then using for example, if it's a descriptive analysis, did you do proportions, did you do mean, standard deviation? If it is study on risk factor, what did you calculate? Did you calculate odds ratio, relative risk, and 95% CIs? If you have used any statistical testing, you need to mention what those tests are. And finally, most importantly, all journals mandate that you talk about ethics committee approval. So you need to mention which ethics committee approved it. And quite a few journals nowadays even ask copy of an ethics committee approval or a reference number if your ethics committee has a particular number assigned to your protocol. File writing method, you need to keep in mind that whom did you include? Who was your study population? Who are the people who were part of your study? And if you have excluded someone, why they were excluded? If you have done a trial, you need to mention clearly what was the method used in randomization and whom did you put in the treatment group, whom did you put in the control group, and a detailed description of randomization should be given in the method section. So most important thing is, if you have written a good protocol, this is the easiest section to write. So I always, when we teach our students, we tell them start with methods because you already have a protocol. So all you need to do is, you would have written at that point, I will do this. You turn the future tense to the past tense. Okay. And then you need to structure it. As I said that, give details. You might want to add more details now because at that time you didn't know certain things, but later on, as you started doing the study, you have added more details. So those details can be added. And you also need to mention references. See, for instance, under data collection, you may define certain, in your data analysis, you may give certain operational definitions. What is the definition of when do I call it cancer? Like, for example, based on pathology, you may give, or based on a certain test definition you may give. In the field studies, we also use sometime, field-based operational definition. Some of these definitions you need to refer with the appropriate references from the literature. What you should not do. So most journals nowadays mandate that you should write in the active voice, not in the passive voice. And don't give any results in the method section. Quite often, there tends to be an overlap. Don't mention how many patients you actually enrolled. You only give the sample size, that how many you meant to enroll. Don't give excessive details on, like you don't need to give your whole tool in your method section. You just need to give categories of information and broad variables which you had included. So just to summarize, I think I'm keeping the time. The introduction explains why you did what you did. So you need to start with overall burden, zoom down from global to regional. In the background, say what was known, what was not known, what was the gap in the knowledge. So what was your research question? And then what you did. So end with the objectives. And in methods, you need to really describe in detail what were the questions you asked, what was the methods you have used, what measurements you did, what did you record. And if someone, so methods should be detailed enough for someone to replicate your study. So if they read it, can they do the same thing on their own? Thank you very much. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, madam, for your wonderful presentation. And may I request Dr. Sanjay Gupta sir to give his expert comment?
I think I must congratulate Dr. Prabhadeep for being very precise and a very precise and correct guidance. And I think anybody, especially all the juniors who want to write, if they have listened to the talk, I'm sure they must have taken slide photographs also, and they should keep on looking at it. And I think this is beautifully done, and I think this will guide everyone precisely how the initiation of the study and the presentation initially should go. So thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, Prabhadeep Kaurji.
Thank you, sir. I can't see any questions in the chat box, but anybody want to ask? I'm happy to answer.
Then we can start second talk. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So moving ahead, we have our next speaker, and may I request Dr. Manjupuri ma'am to kindly introduce our speaker, Dr. P. Ganesh Kumar, who will first speak upon writing the results and then on choosing the journals. Manju ma'am, kindly introduce our speaker.
So at the very outset, I thank and congratulate Dr. Lakshmi, Dr. Parag, Dr. Radhika, and the entire ICOG team to have taken up this very, very important topic. And the talk given by Dr. Deep Kaur was excellent. I'm saying there was no ghas-poos around. It was a very crisp talk with very clear messages. So it is indeed my pleasure now to invite another scientist and Assistant Director, ICMR, National Institute of Epidemiology, Dr. P. Ganesh Kumar. He is also a physician a field epidemiologist and implementation researcher. So the wonderful speakers the ICOG team has chosen. Dr. Ganesh has got 14 years of experience in public health research, training and implementation. So he's again the right person to be talking on how to present your results and how to choose the journal. He has got 55 plus research publications in peer-reviewed journals. And he has been the lead for many funded projects on NCD and digital health. So over to you, Dr. Ganesh, for your talk.
Thank you very much, Madam, for introducing me. It's really a great pleasure to interact with all of you. I hope my slides are visible.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So in continuation with the introduction and the methods, I will be briefly telling about some do's and don'ts in result section when we are going to write about the result section in the manuscript. So I will be talking about the purpose of the result section and what is the important coming slides. As you are aware that the Vancouver style and ICMJE style is IMRAD, and each and every section tells about, like, when introduction tells about why did you conduct this study, method section talks about what did you do in this study, the result section talks about what did you find in your study, and the same way the discussion section will have to talk about what does it mean. I will briefly tell about these things, especially in results. Basically, the results section part of it closely tied to the method section. The flow of the method section has to be same reflected in the results section, which it means it mirror that what did you do and what did you find. So the sequence has to be similar. It corresponds to the results section. So the sequence and organization of the results section should have the logical subheadings, what you have described in the methods. For example, based on the type of finding, presenting the results means it is first presenting the population where you have conducted the study and the subgroup analysis. Presenting the results, which increases the complexity of the analysis from simple things. The level of importance is like digging down deep, or it is like funneling down towards the important aspect of it from general. So that's why what we should write in results section is which of the results should I extract from the tables that I mentioned in the text. So the major question of your results section is you describe the main trends in the tables and main exceptions to these trends. That's the kind of the style that you should adopt it. So the logical sequence, if you see here, is simple to complex, general to specific, which is beginning to end. When I say beginning to end, what did you do, what did you find, and finally, what did you arrive? The same simple means broadly from the basic analysis and then getting into the deeper statistical analysis. General to specific means broadly from your population to your specific to your target population. What does that mean? So I'll walk through some 10 don'ts and then I'll come to do's. Mainly in result section, the major mistake what the majority of the authors does leads to rejection is that using statistics in the place of study question to frame the results. We should avoid statistical language, something like association, analysis, or relationship. It should be communicated in research question. I'll give an example here. For example, the example of error is father's literacy were associated with the child working as helper in specific skilled services. But it should be better written like that. Children whose father were educated were more likely to work in skilled jobs than children of uneducated fathers. And you need to provide the comparison proportion with the p-value. So we need to communicate it in the research question terminology. So again, most important error which we do is not presenting the core data, which means broadly writing. The example is most study subjects were not aware. Rather, we need to clearly, specifically give the proper value of the 113 study subject. 17 we are not aware and giving the proportion of it. So we need to give the core data and we have to present it explicitly with the denominator. The third major mistake, what we usually do in the writing results section is using too many decimal points. If you see the error here in the left side, you can see 21.01% and giving confidence interval with unnecessarily filling it. The alternate best option here is that we are presenting clearly as 21%. We no need to account for 0.1. Since I removed the one single digit there, I have to maintain the same consistency in my confidence interval. Most common error happens in the percentages. Putting that 43.0008, all those things we could avoid. The best thumb rule is that maximum 2 decimal points. The another important problem same is using too few decimal points. Rather than reporting, especially in case control study, when you are reporting odds ratio, you should explicitly provide 2 decimal points. The left side, you can see that the author committed a mistake of reducing into 1, where it has to be elaborated as 2. The other common error which we do is that using incomplete headings for tables and figures. The left side, I give an example. Basically, headings should be standalone. It should talk on its own. You need to include time, place, person characteristic into it. And also the number of study subjects and the statistical methodology need to be clearly said. You can see here, left side, high risk pregnancies in a hospital. This is a title of a figure. But ideally, it should be high risk pregnancy cases among trainee mothers by date of admission, Chennai City, Tamil Nadu from January to November 2004. This is the best alternative option. You need to completely give as a standalone, full explicit of the title. Other common mistake which happen is imbalance between the table and narrative presentation of the result. Please understand that you should not repeat all the data in the table in your narrative writing. You need to be very brevity and don't repeat all the numbers. Best is that summary and perspective with less repetition of the data is the best way to write when you are related to this. Common mistake which we do is that pointing too explicitly to tables and figures. You should avoid using table 1, table 2, like in this error, figure 2 represents age and sex. No, don't explicitly mention that in your narrative section. Rather, you can say that within the parenthesis that this is the age and sex distribution of the samples, and bracket, you can mention figure 2. Most common mistake which we use is using inappropriate figures. When you have a table, you no need to repeat the same thing in the figure. This is another important thing where the reviewers see as a poor quality research writing. The best way you have to efficiently write, when you want to present something in tables, please don't repeat in the figure, and also communicate that particular values in your narrative section. It is not always mandatory to put everything in figures. Another important common mistake which we usually do is that using wrong symbol to designate degree. This we commonly see that it is related to any paper written on lab. So when you are, this is an example is that like how to include your degree symbol. And these kind of usage of wrong symbols leads to poor writing skills and non-standardized footnotes in tables. There is a structured, specific way of writing footnote symbols according to International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. And this icmje.org, if you refer, then you can see that it starts with a star, then goes to the dagger, then double dagger, and it goes on. And do not use any other symbols like using alphanumeric or any alphabets. And you can all find these symbols in the Microsoft Word and which is available. As we have seen all these don'ts, I would like to highlight some of the important do's. Always try to think that you are recycling the methods outlined wherever it is possible in a crisp way. Walk the reader through very salient findings. You no need to tell all the findings in the table in your narrative section. Please provide denominators wherever you can and always provide your numerators that. Don't just provide only percentages. It leads to the reader to a wrong interpretation. And you need to capture the information in tables and figures. For example, here you can see cases and controls did not differ with respect to baseline characteristics bracket. And describe the information in simple terms. Maximum amount of words you need to have is 25 words. Use always simple sentences and avoid complex sentences, and always use past tense. A brief don'ts related to the style of the result section is do not use general sentences. Don't give kind of like emotional sentences. We have seen, and unfortunately, these findings don't write like these kind of sentences. Do not discuss or interpret results. You have a separate section called interpretation, which is in discussion. In result section, you have to only tell what is there, what you found, what it means. It should come in the discussion part. And do not quote unnecessarily the references. You no need to quote any references. No references should be there in the results. Results is that what did you find? And you need to tell only that in result section. There is no role for quoting any references. And do not spell out everything in your table. And don't use adjectives qualifiers. Like you no need to say that this is the largest distribution of largest percentages found in males. Never use these kind of qualifiers. And very, very important danger sign, don't use etc. As the discussion section is not mentioned, but I would like to include it. Discussion section is winning your case. Most importantly, majority of the people find it very difficult to do that. When we say winning your case, you need to interpret the data. You are arguing your case here. Interpretation of the data means your point speaks here. What does this data mean to be? You are trying to interpret here. You need to argue here. You need to put your case strongly here. And you need to have your supportive evidence to your point, which is quoting results similar to your research from other published literature. You no need to quote your published literature for each and every important finding. Please understand, in discussion section, you are going to support your case on what was your objective, what did you find, and how that doesn't mean here. More you need to talk around your objectives, and supportive points lead to your objectives. And you need to clearly give your take-home message in the discussion aspect of it. So the discussion section should have all these things. And I'm going to tell you how this should happen in paragraph. Imagine that in your discussion section, the first paragraph is summary of your finding in non-data form. You need to summarize here. Here you can no need to use of qualifiers. Rather, you can use broader terminologies. What I found is what the summary. The paragraph 2 is that your point. What is the most important point that you have to talk about it? What I could say. That is your second paragraph. Here you can take evidences from the other results, similarities or differences from other similar studies done in your similar setting. If your test line conducted in India, better to get compared another study from India or from a lower middle income country. Paragraph 3 should tell about your limitation section, which is that what I cannot say, which means what are the limitations in my studies which may lead I cannot say about some of the finding. Paragraph 4 is about conclusions and recommendation section, where you are going to say what I conclude and what I suggest about it. So these are all the major things which talk about your discussion section. So this is about the results part of it. If the chat allows, I can head towards the next part, selecting the journals.
Yes, please move on. Yeah.
Please, yes.
So please go ahead with the next topic, I think. Which journals, the next topic?
Whether my screen is visible, selection of a journal for your manuscript publication.
Yes, sir. So it's visible.
Yes. Thank you very much. Fundamentally, whenever you are selecting your journal or when you are writing, please understand that you are qualifying the three important points, which is the Lancet mantra. Are you writing anything new in your subject area? Are you going to tell an important finding which is true and not over exaggerating or underestimating it? And third, do we really care? Is it really an important public health problem or a clinical issue which I am going to write? If it qualifies, your story is strong. The same is also seen when the reviewers review your manuscript. The same you should select the journal also like. Choosing a right journal comes with a practice, but there are certain best practices which I will walk through it. Number one, whenever you are preparing your manuscript, the same time you need to choose your journal because the manuscript differs, style different upon your journal's requirement. Always prepare your manuscript on journal requirement. The number one step is that please select the journal when you start writing your manuscript. Please read similar articles in the journal. That will make you to understand, know the scope of that particular journal and style, how these articles are getting accepted. Before writing, reading is the most important aspect of it. Please read similar articles in the journal. Journal with more paper of your interest is the best thing. Very easy example, journals of OG Society have a higher proportion, if you higher possibility and chances to accept if your article is related to similar discipline. Please select the journal which is more reputed in your fraternity. This is quite common. I know that this is very, very annoying when it is getting rejected, but please accept that rejection on each and every journal is a stepping stone to get published. How to select a journal? Selecting the journal is number one, journals publishing similar work. That's one checkpoint. Second, at least it should be PubMed indexed and it has an impact factor. Start with a brief amount of a very good reasonable impact factor, which is Web of Science list impact factor. No predatory. Please refer that you are not publishing in any predatory journals. There are many journals out in the market. If you pay today, tomorrow they will publish it. Please understand it is a matter of prestige. If you publish in a predatory journal, then your matter of prestige will go down, your reputation will fall down because that is available open in public. Anyone can pull that and your reputation is at stake. There are certain websites which publish, which are all called BHealth list, predatoryjournals.org. All these are available. You can refer that. And what your fraternity reads more is where you have to publish it. If it is your OG fraternity, there will be some 10 or 15 journals which will be commonly being published and commonly being read. Please go to the instruction to the authors and read that clearly says that journal entertains what scope of work and what are the type of manuscripts they accept. It also mentions what is the article publication charges they have. All the majority of the Elsevier journals don't have article publication charges if it is not an open source. When you are going to select the journal, please observe that there are two things. Number one, if you go to PubMed landing page, you can see there is a section called journals. If you click that, it will open this particular page, which are called NLM catalog journals. You type obstetrics and gynecology. If you are going to have published something on reproductive health, type that. You will get the journals which are all in PubMed indexed. And each and every journal, you will have the entire thing when this journal was started, whether it is PubMed indexed or midline indexed. I use most commonly this particular tool called Gyne Biosemantics. This Gyne Biosemantics here, if you just type the title of your manuscript, it will suggest your journal here. I just tried this particular type, a journal title, the manuscript title, Effect of Periodontal Treatment on Systemic Inflammatory Markers. It lists, these are all the journals which are all suggested, which are all Medline Index, which are all high quality open access, which are PMC. If you go and click each and respective, it tells about the journal, whether it is having an impact factor, and when this journal is started, what is the landing page of this journal. And you can even see similar articles which are published in this. There is one more tool which I commonly use is called Shimago Journal Ranking. This also gives you respective discipline wise, country wise, and since the year wise, the ranking is there. This gives kind of a more amount of clarity about which is having a high Shimago journal ranking. Of course, you can verify the journal impact factor also simultaneously. Finally, we will give this particular matrix, which is easy to get. Always go for, if you select a good quality journal and you have something true and new and useful, you may get reviewed. Of course, there is chances of getting rejected. If your article does not have any new information, but if you submit in a good quality journal, of course, it gets rejected. If there is nothing new in your article and you submit in a poor quality journal, you may publish it very quickly, but you have to bury your work and your reputation. Better you don't publish it. If it is really a true and new and useful information, and if you put it in a good quality journal, again, your reputation goes in stake and your work will go into waste. So I strongly recommend you should not publish in a predatory journal. Thank you very much. And I stop here and happy to take questions from here onwards.
Thank you so much, sir. And may I request Dr. Sanjay Gupta, sir, to give his expert comments?
Yes, sir.
Manju, ma'am. Manju, Puri,
Again, a very
Yeah.
useful,
sir, please. Yeah.
again, very precise and useful talk by Dr. Ganesh. I think he clarified so many things for everyone. And the best part was how to select a proper journal and what not to do with the journal. But of course, how to write the results, what is the meaning of discussion. I think every single point that he brought forward is really very, very useful. And I'm sure all the youngsters who are out there wanting to publish are going to be properly guided. I think both our speakers, we should request them to be, guides and mentors to our, youngsters who are trying to publish, through FOGSI as our, mentors for them, guide to them. I think that will go a long way in getting some good publications to our association.
Thank you very much, sir. And Manju, ma'am, Manju Puri, ma'am,
Yeah.
your comments,
So,
please. Yeah.
Yes, so I think excellent talks. And I'm sure that these talks are going to be on the website because one needs to refer to them over and over again. Very nice checklist. I think if we keep the checklist handy, that will help us enhance our publications to a great extent. So congratulations, Dr. Lakshmi, for having found these pearls to give this such beautiful and clear messages as far as publication is concerned. So thank you so much.
Lakshmi, ma'am.
Yes, I'm here only.
Yes, madam, your comments, please.
Oh, no, I am so speechless after listening to the talks by Dr. Prabdeep and Dr. Ganesh Kumar, how crystal clear they are in their thought process and the way they delivered with lot of practical take-home messages, and there was no confusion at all in their talks. And as Gupte sir said, yes, I will be in touch with both of them because we can only request them that they should be mentors for our students and our members who are interested in writing an article or they are interested in publishing their research work. So on behalf of ICOG, my sincere thanks to both the speakers and to Radhika for finding them and allotting the topics to them. So Radhika, credit goes to you also.
Thank you so much. So Ranjana, with your permission, may I just have two questions directed to Dr. Ganesh. Dr. Prabdeep has unfortunately, she had to go, so she left the program. So,
Yes.
Dr. Ganesh, are you there?
Yes,
Yes, madam.
Yes.
I'm there.
So, incidentally, Dr. Ganesh was at UCMS many years back, apparently. So now when I see him, I do recognize him. It's a pleasure to meet you online after so many years. So I just wanted to ask you, with all these, so many we talk about the predatory journals. So I think the low middle income countries are one of the biggest subscribers and probably the customers to these predatory journals. The reason being that some of them don't charge money, or some of them actually invite you to publish, and the process is very fast. The peer reviewing, they don't ask too many questions, and as you might, I'm sure you are already aware, we run short of money every time we want to publish. And number two, English is a language which is difficult. It is not our native language. So, what would you really like to, how would you like to circumvent this challenge? Your advice on that, Dr. Ganesh?
I would suggest, ma'am, only one thing in terms of it's better to get a peer reviewed among our colleagues and seek out to other disciplines and ask them, for example, those who publish and find out whether it is predatory or not. For example, one practice what we do with our institution is that when we come across one particular journal, when if we found to be, for example, there are two journals recently which went into the predatory parties, MDPI and another is Frontiers group, and as well as Curious is another group which is also found to be like kind of more caution. So before we suggest a journal, we ask some 2-3 people and find and check that whether it is predatory or not. We check two websites. One is predatoryjournals.org. Another is BHEL's list. And both the things we find whether the journal is listed there or not. And if it is not, then only we'll go ahead. At least it should have a PubMed. It has a Web of Science indexed. If these two things are there, chances of being predatory is very less.
No, Dr. Ganesh, my point is something different. See, I might be aware that it's a predatory journal. They could also be saying that they are, indexed in Scopus or Copernicus. I don't know by what means, because now NMC allows you, it is taken as a publication and you can add it to your list of.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah. Audible, are you able to hear me? So I just wish to understand, knowing the fact that it is predatory, we still need to go ahead because of the constraints of language and money. So how do people living in Asia, middle-income countries, how do they get to publish into these index journals? I myself am many times at a loss. We have just recently concluded 2 ICMR projects. Unfortunately, we did not, put the publication cost into the funding. And many times the publication cost which is allocated is so little, hardly, we are able to go ahead. So I think Dr. Ganesh is there, or he is.
No, we just lost him and his network is unstable.
Can I just answer this question?
Yes, Madhuri.
Yeah.
So basically, once you write any paper, you probably need to, show it to another 2 or 3 people who are good at writing, and they would probably correct whatever is wrong. You also have certain agencies who would probably correct your English and do those things, and then you can send. But most of the other journals, because I'm associated with many journals, we really do not take, those journals do not take any money. But one thing is there that people feel that any paper coming from India, they feel that it has been cooked, because and Fertility Sterility, where I'm the associate editor. So that's what the feeling they give, when we get any article. And sometimes we do get articles, but the English is so bad. They're not, looked at how the author should write the paper, because you have to always go. There's always a guide. Every journal has a guide as to how the paper should be written and what are the requirements. So if one follows, as Dr. Ganesh said, that you have to first choose a journal and then write, because each journal has a different way of writing. So they will give instruction to the authors. So you need to read those instructions to the authors very well, and then you should write your paper.
So I also just thought it would be a good opportunity to share my experience. So now you have those, editors which are available online. for example, Grammarly, and then you have the word tune. They help you to improve your language. So when they say talk in active voice, so it takes some time for us to understand what is active voice and what is passive voice and that sort of a thing, because you are so lost in your research. So those kind of software is also available. That was one point that I was getting at. Number two, the people who want to write it for you, they want their name to be, there is nothing that comes free of cost. So either they charge money again, or they want their name to be inserted in that publication.
Yeah,
So
so you just
how
acknowledge.
common-
No, you
Yeah.
just acknowledge people. Like
Yeah.
I can give you an example with one of my articles which are published in an international journal, where I was supposed to write on tuberculosis of the endocrine glands. So I did my research, I wrote everything, but I did send my paper to an endocrinologist and to a pathologist, and I acknowledged them, and also to a pediatrician, wherein she spoke about the affection of the endocrine glands with tuberculosis in the pediatric population. So at the end of it, there's no harm in acknowledging the people. So that does not lower your level as an author. So I think that's the best method to do, wherein you send it to those people who have experience in writing or who are specialized in that field, and you acknowledge them for helping.
Certainly, they did that at the same time with your publication. I was talking about the professionals. There are people who advertise, who say that they will help you to publish.
No,
and all
but
that.
there are so many professional writers, but I feel they don't do justice, the professional writers, because at many a times I've seen, because I'm working with so many societies, we do a particular project and then we tell these medical writers to write. But when it comes, they've not properly written. So you have to redo all the work. So the medical writers is a totally different thing. You do write, but if whatever subject you're specialized, you send it to another person who has could improve
Your
your paper.
voice is not coming, Dr. Madhuri. I think the connection is a problem.
No, I'm connected, I think. You can hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So probably you just acknowledge them. I don't think medical writers, only if they are of a very good quality, I mean, you can really make use of them. But I personally believe that medical writers really do not do a good job, who work only as medical writers.
Radhika, can I just make a point? I think it would be very useful in case you could put those softwares onto the ICOG website, wherein, we can correct the grammar. I know there are softwares available. So,
cost money.
Sorry, no, I'm to say, is there nothing free of cost?
Nothing. They do a basic kind of a work, but that may not be enough. I think Dr. Ganesh wants to chip in.
Sorry for dropping in between. If I have understood correctly, that you asked about the professional writers and the tools. Am I right, Dr. Radhika?
No, before that, my problem was to find a good journal which doesn't cost money.
Okay.
So is there a site, for example, there is the Geneva Foundation of Medical Research in Gynaecology. So they have those kind of journals. So I was just wanting your suggestion that, if there is any such site somewhere, we can probably get, Hindawi is another group. So do you have suggestions for such kind of places from where we could get good journals, where the charges are, if not very high, and we can go ahead with the publication? Dr. Ganesh?
You will have to unmute yourself.
Kindly unmute, yeah, Dr. Ganesh. Mitali, can you unmute Dr. Ganesh?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah, now only I could.
Yes,
I was prevented before. Fine. So one important hack I would say is that none of the Elsevier journals charges article processing charges if you are going to publish as non-open access. It's free. There is no article processing charges. Most of the Elsevier journals, if you are going to publish not an open access, there is no article processing charges. You can directly publish without charges. That's number one. The second part is that I strongly suggest you have to use Grammarly even with the basic feature even that sounds good. There are certain professional editing services are available like Editage. They charge per word, but however, Elsevier also provides some of this language correction services. But again, those are all charges involved into it. And you can use some few tools currently which is coming up in the market, which is free. There is a site called copy.ai, Quillbot, all these Quillbot, copy.ai. I will put all these things in the same WhatsApp group, and there they can, it will rephrase, it will also check for some grammar corrections. But as an association and society, I strongly recommend if FOGSI purchases some, there are educational non-profit Grammarly subscription charges are there, where you could purchase it, which will be really useful and for all the members and as well as the authors. But I don't suggest engaging writing entirely a professional writer of your entirely, because they don't understand the context of your subject matter. You can use it for editing services. Over.
You end up spending more time trying to explain it to them, no? The person who is not there.
Excellent input, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ranjana?
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
So after the masterly stroke from two representatives of ICMR, Dr. Prabdeep and Dr. P. Ganesh Kumar, let us move ahead to our next session, not before thanking our esteemed chairpersons, Dr. Sanjay Gupta sir and Dr. Manju Puri ma'am. Indeed, the session was very informative and precise and lots of take-home messages. Thank you very much, the speakers and chairpersons. Moving ahead to our next scientific session, let me first invite our chairpersons. So our esteemed chairpersons are, first of all, Dr. Abha Rani Sinha ma'am, Professor and Head OBGYN, SKMCH Muzaffarpur. Madam is a keen academician, ICOG Governing Council member 2021-23 and National Corresponding Editor, Jogi 2021-23. Madam has held many coveted posts. Madam has been past President Patna OBGY Society. Madam has a UG and PG teaching experience of more than 28 years. And Madam CV has been decorated with many awards. And Madam has been a very good organizer also. So welcome, Madam. Next, we have Dr. Madhuri Patil, Madam. Madam is President and Founder Member of Fertility Preservation Society of India, Chairperson Aspire SIG Reproductive Endocrinology 2021-23. Madam is also Associate Editor of Fertility and Sterility Journal, and Madam is also Vice President and Founder Member of PCOS Society of India, Vice President ISAR, and Governing Council Member ICOG 2021-2023. Madam has held many important posts like Associate Editor in TOFJ, Past Editor-in-Chief of Journal of ISAR. Madam has many awards, and Madam is also member of International Reproductive Medicine Research Network. Madam, I welcome you in this session as our esteemed chairperson. And finally, we have Dr. Anahita Chauhan. Madam is Honorary Consultant SAFI and St. Elizabeth Hospitals. Madam is also former professor and unit head SAIT GS Medical College and KEM Hospital. Madam is President-elect Mumbai Obs and Gynae Society and first joint editor Journal of Obs and Gynae, that is Jogi. So Madam, I welcome you to this session. And the first topic of our discussion is why articles are rejected, and the speaker is none other than Dr. Suvarna Khadilkar ma'am. And may I request Dr. Abha Rani Sinha ma'am to kindly introduce and invite Dr. Suvarna Khadilkar ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjana, for your wonderful introduction. And at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Lakshmi Srikhande madam, Dr. A.G. Radhika madam, Dr. Parag, and the whole FOGSI and ICOG team and the Jogi team for conducting this very academic and very informative research methodology workshop. And after two wonderful talks by Dr. Prabhadeep and Dr. Ganesh, we are now going to have an important talk on why research papers are rejected. And to speak on this subject, we have Dr. Swarna Khadilkar. She's a great researcher. She has been the editor-in-chief of Jogi, and at present she is emeritus editor of Jogi. Apart from this, she has been the professor and head and consultant endocrinologist and gynecologist of the very reputed Bombay Hospital, Mumbai. She has been the chairperson endocrinology committee FOGSI. She has held different administrative posts in FOGSI like treasurer, joint secretary, and at present she is deputy secretary general. She has also been the president Indian Menopause Society. She is the recipient of many awards for her research work. She has published many journals, and it's indeed a pleasure to invite her to hear her very important talk, why articles are rejected. So over to Dr. Swarna, madam.
Suvarna, welcome from US. She has logged in from US. That is why I was telling Radhika that Suvarna is very, very committed. If she has said yes, she will definitely log in. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Actually, when she invited me, I said, I'll be in US. And what time will it be? So I got scared. It was beginning at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. So I wasn't sure, but I managed to log in. Before I begin my talk, I really want to appreciate Dr. Lakshmi's efforts. And, I'm with this program since its inception, since Lakshmi and I were discussing how to go about. And I can see Dr. Radhika is doing such a great job as a convener of this whole program. So congratulations to the whole team for doing wonderful job. And under the leadership of Dr. Rishikesh Pai this year, this program is really doing well. And Dr. Parag and Dr. Ashok have also put in a lot of efforts in this. And I must say that I saw my friend Dr. Ambuja's name. I could not locate her. I think she could not join or something. I don't know.
Family emergency here.
Yes, right. So, and the experts from Chennai have really given wonderful talk. And Dr. Manju Puri and experts like Dr. Sanjay Gupta are connected. It's an honor to have him. And to Dr. Abharani Sinha, Dr. Madhuri Patil, and Dr. Anaita Chauhan. She's already taken over as president of MOGS. Now she's no more elect. And it's a pleasure to give my favorite talk. And this talk I have been giving since a long time. And I hope you all appreciate it. And, you know, it's a little emotional happening when your paper gets rejected. So I'll try and connect. I hope I can share the screen.
Yes, you can. Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is coming. Yes, Neha. Great.
Yeah. So that's the topic. Why do papers get rejected? And before actually I proceed, I think there was one query raised by Radhika that what to do about our Indian authors who want to publish in the index journals. So apart from all that has been said regarding language and editing and things like that, I think most important aspect is the quality of the scientific research that you have done or the paper that you have done. Languages and other things can be handled, but if your paper is of poor quality, it is less likely to be accepted in any standard journal. So I think all of us need to understand that you have to have a good quality research, and then only you expect that the article would be accepted in a high standard journal. So a little bit about our FOGSI journal. All of you are aware it was founded in 1950 by Dr. Girard, and the founder secretary manager was Dr. Gul Wazifdar. And it is well circulated and having a good standard. International edition is also available, and it is abstracted in PubMed Central, and it is indexed in several important indexing agencies. And we have been organizing PICSIP workshop on the platform of Jogi. And I think now ICOG has joined hands with Jogi to conduct similar and rather more detailed talks on all aspects of research. That's a very good thing. I have been associated with Jogi since 23 years. And then finally, I was awarded the editor emeritus once I finished my term as an editor-in-chief. And my dear friend Geeta, who has taken over, I think she's going to speak the next. But I must say this experience is so very important, and there is no way to get experience except through experience. So let's proceed with the topic. It is really disheartening to get a rejection after paper is submitted to a prestigious journal. And many get the feeling, you know, you have appeared for an exam and you have failed in an exam, and you get so dejected and you get so you know, internally disturbed that how can I fail in such a internal exam. So we will look into the reasons why papers get rejected and how to deal with them once rejected. So for more reading, you can go through this editorial, which was published in July, August 2018 issue of our journal, and we'll give information in detail. And just before we proceed, you must understand how the research article, you know, goes through several processing. So at the first go, when you submit your article, it goes through technical checking. Then it goes to the editor-in-chief, who checks at the overall contents and overall scientific merit of the journal, I mean, of the paper. And then it, if he feels that this journal, I'm sorry, this paper is not at all of standard, at the editorial discussion, the initial review is undertaken, and all of the associate editors, they have a discussion and they decide whether this article should be processed or it is not of that quality that it can be taken further for peer review. So if selected, it goes to expert external peer reviewers. If good, generally some minor revisions are advised before accepting. After revisions accepted as is. Very poor article is therefore is rejected, or major revisions are advised. If not up to the mark, then they are rejected. So that is the way the articles are processed. And common reasons for direct rejection, when the editor-in-chief looks at the papers and he feels that no, this need not at all be even processed. So the paper and the subject, if out of scope of the journal and not suitable for the journal and the readership, it gets directly rejected. There is, if the hypothesis that is being presented is very weak, too basic research, then poor methodology, small sample size, poor statistical analysis, and discrepancy of authors and institutions. Many times we find that, you know, there is a research done in a particular institute and the author is not at all you know, associated with the institute, and then there can be some ethical issues that may crop up later. So before that is sorted, if it is not sorted satisfactorily, the article may be rejected at the discretion of the editor. There can be conflict of interest. If they are not declared properly, article can get rejected. If there is no ethical committee permission taken, see, now people have become aware. When I took over as editor of the journal, hardly, you know, just about 30–40% of people used to take ethical committee permission, and others would not even bother to write a statement in the paper. And I think the awareness has been improving, and now everybody, almost you can say 80–90% of papers, they come with ethical committee permissions. And we also ask for the letter to be submitted so that we are sure that this has been permitted by the ethical committee. Informed consent of the subjects, if it is not taken, if ethical committee permission letter is not attached, we don't, we just return the article and we say unless that is given, we will not further process the paper. Single case reports not making a useful point, usually banking on its rarity, they are likely to be rejected. The target journal may have similar research papers published recently or many in recent issues, or already they are in the process of getting published, because you may not know as readers that the paper, similar paper has been is in the process, because it is only with the internal review with the editors. So if it is being published and another article comes, then it is, editor feels that already so many good articles have come on the same topic, and why accept another? And even though your topic may be good, it may be rejected at that time. Suspected or confirmed plagiarism is one reason why it would get rejected. So once you accept the paper, the editors accept, and then they further process the papers for reviewing, there are certain reasons which are, for which the papers are rejected. The aims do not raise the right kind of questions, and background lacks clarity of thoughts. Even though the topic may be relevant, the auditor may subject it to further processing. But when you go in a detailed analysis of the paper, the aims don't match, or they are not right kind of questions in the aims. Data are incomplete. The methodology section has irreparable deficiencies. Instructions to authors are not followed strictly. Figures are of low resolution. Tables are not very simple. They should be simple to read and comprehend. If they are too complicated and not easily comprehensible, then they can be one additional reason for rejection. So it speaks about the overall quality of the paper, technical as well as language. And case reports lack proper documentation and follow-up, then we don't accept such case reports. We need documentation. We need some proof that this important in difficult case has been managed by the authors. And discussion and conclusions do not answer the questions posed in aims and objectives. There are many times the papers have aims and objectives to begin with, and the authors just simply forget what was the original aim and what was the original objective. And then later on, the discussion is going to a different topic as such, and the conclusion is something irrelevant. So there is a mismatch between the statements made in different sections of paper. Then it speaks about how careless you are while making the manuscript. The statements are contradicting your own previous statements. So after you ask them, authors, to revise, and after revisions, if you receive the paper, I have found at least 30 to 40% of the authors, they are so lazy, they don't work on the paper hard enough and to improvise the presentation of data, and they just resubmit the same old draft, and they say that we have made the changes. And it really speaks about that how careless and how lazy the author is, and such papers, they are likely to be rejected. And there is an overall lack of elements of good research in these papers. So we don't accept such papers. There may be references which are not as per journal style, poor language, many spelling and grammatical mistakes are the common reason again. So this whole processing of the article has been discussed in the other editorial. You may make note of this, and you can read it in the issue of March, April 2018. And just to brief how the process of research goes, after the research is completed, the manuscript is prepared, submission of manuscript takes place, then we assign the manuscript and review. Then the decision is made. It can be directly rejected in this first review, and the research is complete there only for that journal. If we ask them to revise, after revision, there can be resubmission. After resubmission, there will be re-review, or many times, I mean, you should be prepared for re-review, because it happens that first revision, second revision, third revision, and after these multiple revisions and re-reviews, then we go for the either a rejection if the revisions are not up to the mark, and again the research ends there. And then if there is a acceptance, then the paper goes for publications. So why do the papers get rejected? And what I did was I analyzed all the reasons for the rejection in our journal, and we put it as a pie chart here. And you can see there are more than, I mean, there are multiple reasons, but which are the top reasons for rejection? Poor methodology stands high on the list. No new information, poor scientific content, case report of low priority, similar papers have been published out of scope for journal, poor language, incomplete data, case reports not so rare, ethical issues, poor references, revision not good, plagiarism, poor statistics, tall claims, author issues, and conflict of interest. So these are the rejection reasons. And if you see the, I am little actually, even though the plagiarism is very troublesome issue, the plagiarism is not that high in this journal. There are papers which are rejected. So if you see the light blue color chart here, so it is small. So it's not very big reason for rejection, but once that is the reason for rejection, it is likely to be, taken to task, and there can be further events that the author may face. So what about rejection rates? Rejection rates of various top tier journals, including ours, vary between 80 to 85%. Some journals have reported it to be around 90 to 95%. Sometimes restricted publishing space is the reason. And interestingly, 62% of the papers have been rejected at least once before other journals they publish these papers. But I always feel if the paper quality is of high, standard, and if so a good quality research paper will find the space it deserves in the top tier journal. So don't get dejected that if one journal has rejected doesn't mean that it will be rejected in other journal. There are various reasons that we saw just now. So if your other journal doesn't have the similar reasons for rejection, for all you know this, if your research that you have performed is good quality, it will get accepted. So I always feel, for the readers who work very hard within their own ability and capacity. So as an editor, did I like to reject papers? Obviously, no. I feel that, yes, I must accept the work that has been, the efforts that have been put in. I should not reject. Every time I reject a paper, I feel and I appreciate the efforts that have gone in the preparation. Isn't a paper of a low quality and priority that will be rejected? That also I accept. Yes, it is the low quality paper which will be rejected. So now, even though I have soft corner for the authors who have been writing and whose papers are getting rejected, then I ask myself, am I doing justice to the readers worldwide who take out time to read our journal, to learn something new, to improvise the way they practice? So world's best revolutionary trials and path-breaking research are submitted to these prestigious journals. So do our readers deserve a poor quality work? So the answer is definitely no. Don't the readers deserve the best of the best research for updating their knowledge? Yes, of course. So before you start writing, now how to prevent rejection is learning the art of the best writing the paper. So before you start writing, ask yourself first, why do I want to write a paper? If you are writing out of compulsion, if you are not having minimum qualities of a medical writer, then it's not going to prove fruitful. So is there a compulsion or a necessity? Is it a job that you need promotion? That's why you are wanting. Do I write to get funds? Do I have that kind of skill? I want to apply for a job and fear of losing job. So all these questions you ask, and if the answers are yes, out of compulsion I'm writing. Obviously, the work that you will bring out is not going to be of quality. So you will have to have some good quality work only if it is not coming out of compulsion. So the will, skill, and drill are the three components of the art of quality of scientific writing. And these are built on sound foundations of science, quality, and integrity of the researchers. So in the hurry to get it published, you may go online, copy some lines of a good paper and put them in your paper so that you have a quick ready paper. But that's not the way it should be done. You will be caught. We have so many softwares which can pick up the plagiarism, and you will be punished for that. So don't indulge in copying from anything. It is very easy to copy from soft copies on internet, but do not indulge in that, and be true to yourself. So one question keeps disturbing authors of rejected papers. If I have done a useful study and I have written to the perfection and to my satisfaction, then why did the editors and reviewers reject my paper? So understand, failure is the stepping stone to success. Don't get dejected. So please take the critical comments in your stride and, study them, try to improvise the manuscript and submit again. Maybe if not in the same journal, you can submit in another journal. So what is the value of having your work published? All of us write and publish our work because it documents that peers believe your research is important. You gain academic credibility, you become known as an expert in that area, and you will be asked to be a peer reviewer. If you have published a few papers, they may consider you as an expert in that, reviewing certain papers which are published in the same area. And you will be ahead of the literature because you are going to publish something which is, new and which has not been studied and published before. And it is very, very important for overall academic advancement. So you want to publish. So what will you do? If after getting rejection, you improvise, change, and submit it another journal. So how to write to avoid rejection? Choose the research question properly, form a strong hypothesis that has not been discussed or published before. There is no point in just confirming the already proven facts. So choose the most suitable journal. I think we have had a wonderful discussion and a talk on how to choose the suitable journal. And so go ahead, I'll skip this. So now how do I write? Many people ask me, how do I write? So, I must say that I am not a voracious reader for general literature, but I do read a lot of scientific, papers and lot of scientific books and all that which are in the field. So I read all the literature available on the subject. Reading many well-written articles helps you develop a good original writing style of your own. So, so you just read and know how the writing skills of the authors are, how they have put their point, how they have proven the point, how they have divided, what is the visual structure of that particular article. So learn it, but develop your own good original style so that there is no question of copying anybody, and you will have more value. I personally read my own articles again and again, and I give it to my scientific colleagues. I make corrections suggested by them. As Madhuri also said, after you write it, give it to your colleagues who are good at it and take their corrections, take their, suggestions, revise it, and then you can go and submit it. And after having meticulously followed the instructions to author, and then only I submit my article, only after I am completely satisfied about the final draft of the manuscript. Choose the most appropriate type of paper. In my journal, I found that there are review articles, they submit in original paper, case report, case series, they are writing in some other type of paper, instrumentation techniques. These are the various types of paper the journal has. So select the proper type, otherwise it is the basis for direct rejection. Then understand the art and craft of making a draft. If someone says crafting a draft is easy, he's not doing it right. The right way to craft a draft is to first write, then review, revise, review, revise, review, revise as many times as required till you are satisfied. Go ahead and revise that. So these are the various section headings and their order in the manuscript, which I think are discussed in earlier episodes. And these are the standard format of headings of formation of the papers. The order in which they are written, however, can be variable. They need not follow the same order when you actually write, because it is some researchers start writing the result section first and followed by the discussion and abstract. Some others prepare notes while reviewing the literature. After research question is formulated, which is useful for writing discussion, and the title is written last, so it is reflect what the paper is actually about and is most widely read section. So these are the various points regarding how to write title. It should be just succinct, not very long, not very short, and don't use abbreviation in the title. So these are general tips, because if you have these errors in the type, the impression goes and it goes for more chances that it will go for rejection. This is how you should go ahead with the abstract. This is the second, commonly read part of your paper. So that should be perfect and perfectly written. Introduction should be building your case, why study was important, provide a brief background, state hypothesis, which should be completely interesting and very strong. This is the way the material method should be formulated, and these are the points that should be included. And it should be written in such a way that it can be repeated and reproduced by other authors. The results section is again important. Tables, figures must be straightforward, concise. So I'll just skip these slides because they have, I think, been covered earlier. These are the way conclusions should be done. References should be proper, otherwise. So the visual structure that you give to your paper using these sections, subsections, bullets, italics, laid out code should be very, very attractive and should be good to look at, so that people feel like reading all the bullets in your paper. But we have problems with peer review also, not that we are all good and we always do good this thing. There can be, in properly conducted review by peer reviewers who are very busy in their practice. And if you ask them to review a paper, they can make mistakes and they will say, no, it's not good, reject. And once an expert rejects the paper and it comes to us editors, it's very difficult to overrule that. Maybe if you are not happy with that peer review and expert, we send to another reviewer who is expert in the field, and then try to see. And if both the reviewers have said that, no, it's not good, then the editors will really have no choice but reject it, because two experts have rejected it. So once the paper is rejected, what do you do? Responding to reviewers is an art. Carefully prepare your responses. Each comment should be addressed. Each change should be stated in your response or in the revision. B, show that you were enthusiastic in writing making the changes. Reviewer may be wrong. Be tactful. Thank the reviewer still. Do not respond to reviewers while upset. Never call the editor. See, I have submitted this paper. Your reviewer has rejected. What are you doing? So the editors also get very, very annoyed with this kind of behavior. So try to avoid editors. Just be patient. Write all the revisions properly. Don't miss out any point, and then submit your revision. And if you are done the revision as per the reviewers, this thing, you can point out very softly, very gently with the references that this reference say that this is how it should be, and what reviewers may be wrong. But do not just be rude and say that the reviewers have no brains. They have written, I have got letters like that from the authors. The reviewers have no brains. They are, they seem to be biased and things like that. Now, these are the common problems in our Indian submission. Very often we feel that first Indian report of, and that is boasting about your work. So at least be very polite and say, to our knowledge, this is a first report. Maybe if you wish to say that, otherwise you may find another report somewhere, and it has happened many times with my work also, that people are boasting that their first report or first invention, and it has already been invented and published before. So we present a very, very rare case of. Now that's a very vague statement. Plagiarism, better to run your article through a plagiarism detection software. Introduction results and discussions are repetitive. References are unchecked, unvalidated, and poor language skills. But I think you have already discussed how to get over the poor language skills and grammar and things like that. And editors want some excitement factor, the important work being published in their journals. They want originality, relevance to the audience. So keep these points in mind. Otherwise, paper is less likely to be accepted. It should be true, clearly written, and engagingly written, the paper, so that they will read and they will process your article. So paper rejection and its aftermath. After working very hard, when your paper gets rejected, it is really disheartening. A lot of emotional reactions follow. Many times authors have already presented the work and have been awarded paper prizes for the work in the conferences. However, it may not attract similar appreciation by the editors and the reviewers. Hence, the paper gets rejected, and what follows is disappointment, depression, anger, and revengeful attitude. And I have kept many letters as sample of how not to respond to rejection. So now what do you do next? Keep calm, not to be emotional, aggressive, or impulsive to write back and appeal in a fit of anger. Once rejected, most journals do not entertain any further correspondence. Please study the reasons for rejection properly. Try to rectify. Is it that paper quality or journal suitability? It is possible that your paper is suitable for another journal. So submit, revise and submit. Find your faults, correct them, and submit to another journal. Editor himself may transfer the paper to another journal, and your paper may be accepted there. We have a process in our journal that if it doesn't find a space in our journal, we forward it to other, recommend other journals, and the paper our publishers directly take to other journals, so that, without you doing much, the paper gets submitted to other journal and it may be accepted there. But it is at the cost. So it is journals, the publishers on that. And you reassess the paper. If it is suboptimal quality, improve the quality and publish it at a later date. There are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. So do's and don'ts of medical writing, we already know. Original articles must have the originality. All this is already repetition. So I'll just skip a few slides now for want of time. And so to conclude, everyone has papers rejected from time to time. A rejection says nothing about you. It is only a particular piece of paper work. So don't feel bad. Reviewers and editors can make mistakes, but don't be impulsive in pointing out the same, that you have no brains, you are writing like this paper says something which is against all this. Don't write like that. It is an honor to publish your good quality work and review it. And the final aim of publishing or reading is health of our women. So don't forget that it is not your own just progress and your promotions and things like that. So you think about the health of women and whether your paper is really adding to something new to the literature. So I think you should write in such a way that you will be remembered forever for your work. Learn the art and craft of making a draft with skill, will, drill, honesty, integrity, with dignity. So success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for a beautiful presentation on ethical as well as emotional aspect of rejection of an article. So may I request Dr. Abha Rani Sinha, ma'am, for her expert comments?
Thank you, Dr. Swarna. Indeed, it was a very elaborate presentation and you have very well explained the importance of will, skill, and drill. I think these are the three mantras whoever is writing a paper, that person has to be having honesty, sincerity, and integrity, what you have said. And of course, it should be a noble idea. The hypothesis should be something which was not proven before, something new, so that the readers as well as the editors, they are excited over it. And you have given the tips so well, like how to go about it, how to write, rewrite, revise, everything you have explained so well. And also the emotional aspect, that how one feels once the article is rejected and how to overcome it and then to send it to some other journal. So all the points, they were so well described. I think you have made it so interesting. The whole presentation was so interesting. Thank you so much, Dr. Swarna.
I have received threatening phone calls, Dr. Abharani. I tell you that once the paper was rejected, threatening.
I can understand, madam.
How dare you reject my paper? You know,
I can understand, madam. I can understand.
I'm sure Geeta is facing all that trouble now. It's no more my headache as I have passed.
The EIC has a very tough job, madam. I can understand. The EIC has a very tough job.
Very tough job.
And you both are doing so well. You have played a good innings, and again, Geeta ma'am is also doing a very good job. So I think congratulations to both of you. Congratulations to both of you.
Yeah, I stand by each and every word that Suvarna says. Each and every word has come from hard work and experience. I stand by each and every word. And really, you know, we have worked it all our way up, 15, 20 years of experience in the journal. It just shows, you know. So I really congratulate Suvarna.
There are no shortcuts. You have to just go on.
True, madam, true.
Thank you so much.
So after that wonderful presentation, our next topic of discussion is a data sharing policy by none other than our series convener, Dr. A.G. Radhika ma'am. So may I request Dr. Madhuri Patil ma'am to introduce our next speaker. I'll just share the screen. Madhuri ma'am, kindly introduce and invite Radhika ma'am.
At the onset, I would like to thank Dr. Lakshmi and Dr. Radhika for inviting me here, and also appreciate Dr. Lakshmi for the various programs she is conducting during her tenure under the aegis of ICOG and FOGSI, and I think they're really useful. And we go on to our next speaker, Dr. A.G. Radhika, who's the convener for this program. She's a national coordinator for clinical research in FOGSI in the year 1722. National corresponding editor for the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynaecology 21-24. She's a LMIC representative and Guidelines International Network. She's also the member of the Geneva Foundation for Medical Education and Research, Cochrane Collaboration, South Asian Cochrane Network, and Campbell Collaboration. She has several awards to her credit, some of them being recipient of the ICOG Visiting Professor Award 2019, FOGSI Corion Award 2019, FOGSI Best Paper 2016, and she's also the WHO Fellow for Advanced Course on Monitoring and Evaluation and Innovations in Dynamic Health System Environment. And she's also an expert reviewer for several journals, and she'll talk to us on data share.
Thank you so much for the kind introductions, Dr. Madhuri. So this is going to be a brief talk. It's more like a teaser on the recent change in the publication requirements. So now, because a lot of research is coming out, there is a focus on the clinical data sharing, the clinical trial data sharing. So the health research funders and the regulators, and today even some of the journals, they expect the individual level data to be widely available for people because it has got a few advantages. So as you can see here, so there are various now different types of publication processes which are available. For example, F1000 research. Here you have the option of putting out your research on the website, and the reviewers are asked to review your content. So they have a clear data sharing policy. Similarly, you have the PMJ journals which are there, and then the ICMJ data sharing policy which came into effect from the 1st of July 2018. Here too, they require that the clinical data be shared. So why is it today that this clinical data sharing has become so very important? So the rationale for sharing is to maximize the utility of the data set, and it also provides the credibility and the transparency of the research that has been undertaken. And one of the most important reason is that LMICs lag behind in the direction of research. There are fewer studies, thereby there are less data. So whenever we talk about the research which has, we are so used to looking at the guidelines and the evidence from the Western literature and trying to translate that to our practice. So it is important that we have our own data sets which provide evidence to our set of clinical practice. So that is why it is important to share data from areas which have got low research potential too. So today, there is already a data sharing policy which is there in place. So this requires credibility and accuracy of the data, and the rights and integrity, confidentiality of the research are also protected. So there are two important factors, that the accuracy and credibility of the data is there, and you also protect the confidentiality of the participants. And the prerequisites basically are that for any data sharing, for any institution to have, the data sharing policy could be at the individual level or it could be at the level of the institution. So there has to be a data management and sharing policy for all institutions which are going to encourage research. And this is going to come henceforth. Probably not so much implemented yet in our country, but slowly and slowly, because the demand is increasing, this would slowly start happening in majority of the institutions. And once you think about sharing, it is also important to think about the processes, tools, and the governance mechanism. And the policy which of data sharing should be specific to the research context. So for example, if there is a institute which is focusing on malaria, for instance, so there is no point if they think about something of a gynecological disorder. So the requirements of data sharing for each probably a kind of a medical disorder might vary, compared to something which is rare. So there are a huge group of conditions which have got slightly different kind of a data sharing policy. So it should be specific to the research context and user friendly, requiring, ensuring a good quality. And like I said, that the research funders as well as the journals, they want this available for the sake of credibility of the data and also the transparency of the research. So I'm going to just briefly enumerate, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it is still developing in our country, but we have to be aware of this. So the elements of data sharing policy are basically routinely collected health data and research. So the institutions have to decide what kind of data can be made available. And this would need to go through the process of collection, curation, storage, and sharing of the data. And the scoping and cataloging of the data is extremely important. So this could be routinely health data. So our country today has the HMIS system, the Health Ministry Information System, which requires mandatorily majority of the institutions to upload the data online. And this could also be, today it's not freely available to everybody. There will be a time when it will be required, or it is the research data. Then it could be a part of the review of the funders and journal policies. There could be a time when when you are sending your publication, you are having to request your institution to allow the sharing of the data. And of course, there are local ethics and the regulatory mechanisms. So what are the aspects of the data management? It refers to the activities undertaken to organize and handle the data throughout the study period, right from the time of initiation, collection, dissemination of the results, archiving and sharing. So it also entails a certain amount of cost, which could be in the direction of the various items which are getting used, meaning the computer hardware, software, staff. It requires personal training, very important, and data archiving. And then you need to have a data advisory committee, institutional lawyers, which means because when you are sharing the data, it is the participants, the researchers, the institutions, and the people who are taking it. And it is for them to see. So it certainly has its own legal problems or the aspects which come with it, and of course there are general administrative expenses. So this is something that we all need to understand. I just, the last year I had publication in F1000, and they mandatorily wanted the data to be, put in one of the repositories and share the link to that repository on the F1000 platform. So what are the models of sharing? It could be an online open access in the form of a supplementary file to a journal. And here there is no control of the use of your material as a secondary data by any other researcher. So it is available to all for everybody to use. Then there could be external deposit without a case-by-case assessment, meaning the data is accessed by the registered users who have, agreed to the repository's terms and conditions. And fixed share is one of the one of the familiar ones, in addition to many others. Or this could be through the institution application, the data advisory committee. And here it is important that each institution decides on its own mechanism of managing this. So these are examples. You could have various kinds of data, and these are the various repositories where one can put in the data, and what is the kind of data that is required and what is the requirements. One can go through this, and some of them are free, majority of them are charged. They also give you the duration for which they will keep the data. So what are the various types of data that one would want to share? So it could be, individual participant data. Today, there is a lot of focus on individual participant data. Now, why? Because there is a lot of evidence. We have been doing systematic reviews. We have been doing scoping reviews. There are various kinds of reviews that are available today. But ultimately, what happens is once a clinician, once you are undertaking, and when you want to translate the evidence into practice to a particular patient, probably the robust evidence is still very difficult to find. So individual participant data today becomes extremely important as a method for adding evidence to translation to clinical practice. So there could be, however, documents without the IPD, and this could be protocol and its amendments, statistical plans and analysis and its amendments, the statistical codes, informed consent form templates, and then there are those with the IPD available along with anonymization, or there could be pseudo anonymization. So like you can see that the concept is new, and this might look a little complicated, but it is actually not so, because you ultimately are talking about a data set which has come out of the research that you've undertaken, and data protection in terms of the participant anonymity is extremely important. The world is very careful to protect the rights of the patient. So that is why so much is getting talked about. So what about our own country and the LMIC? So currently it's a newly developing aspect. Institutions may not be aware of what it all means and what are the sharing options and what is the legal aspect of data sharing. And studies also prove that very few researchers in LMICs have actually requested the data, because today there are repositories, and if I want to undertake research, I sometimes the funding agency tells me to undertake a systematic review, or also demonstrate through statistical objectivity to say that my research is important. For that, I need to have data, and it shows that majority of the repositories have very few demands arising from the LMIC. So there is the reasons which have been attributed are poor digital literacy, data science skills are also lacking, and there is lack of funds and less time which is dedicated to research. So I would like to conclude to say that it's important today that we understand that there is something called data sharing. We need to have robust, transparent, good data, meaning we need to undertake good research. I think the ultimate filter of the entire talk that has taken place over the last 1.5 hours has been to say that one needs to have honest, sincere, clear research, and where you are happy and proud to share your data to the world. And in the last 10 years, several repositories have been launched. And the benefits of data sharing is to have increased collaboration, visibility, citations, impact, and funding opportunities. Each of these is extremely important for all of us researchers. And The LMICs, the environments are different. We have a lot of difficulties in terms of funding. We have been discussing that the basic facilities such as internet connectivity, the power, the concept of data sharing is yet not very popular amongst us. But despite all this, this was just, like I said, a brief, mention of what is happening in today's world. So thank you so much for a patient hearing.
Thank you, Radhika, for that excellent lecture. And I think this is very, very important because today many of the journals, once you send your paper for publication, if they want to verify whether the data, whatever you publish is right or not, they are asking for the data because especially there are many papers where we know that China publishes in large number where they have almost 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. So basically it has been asked. And so it's very important for all of us who are publishing to keep information on whatever you have collected. And for this, it's important that because many a times we do a retrospective study, when you're doing a prospective, anyway, you take the consent, but in a retrospective study also, therefore, any patient who's coming to your OPD and who has there is a chance of using that patient's data, one must always take a consent when she's in your OPD that her data may be used anonymously for analyzing. So that is also a very important aspect that all of us should keep in mind. And it was a very excellent, it was an excellent talk and also an eye-opener for all. And I thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Radhika ma'am and Madhuri ma'am. And let us move to our last topic, that is publication ethics by none other than our most learned editor-in-chief, Jogi, Dr. Geeta Balsarkar ma'am. And may I request Dr. Anahita Chauhan ma'am to kindly introduce our speaker and invite her for the talk. Dr. Anahita ma'am, kindly introduce Geeta ma'am.
Anahita, are you muted?
मिताली उनको co-host बनाया कि नहीं?
Yes, ma'am, बनाया है.
नहीं, फिर उनका volume.
Unmute her. Mitali, kindly unmute, ma'am.
She's unmuted. Volume कम है. Anahita, just increase the volume.
No, we can't hear. Okay, no problem.
Okay, ma'am, just 2 words. Dr. Geeta Balsarkar, ma'am, as all of you know, is our editor-in-chief, Jogi, and madam is professor and unit chief, Naurozi Wadia Maternity Hospital and GS Medical College, Mumbai. Madam is also treasurer of Mumbai Obs and Gynae Society, past president of Association of Medical Women of India, president Mumbai Menopause Society, chairperson, madam has been chairperson, Young Talent Promotion Committee of FOGSI 2013-2016, and recipient of Hargobind Foundation Fellowship for the study of fetal medicine in 2008. So, madam, please deliver your talk. Thank you.
Yeah, can I get screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Share?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the topic that is given to me is publication ethics, tips and tricks. Okay, and the time is 10 minutes. I think we may need a whole day to discuss publication ethics if we really want to discuss it. So I have kept myself very short. Even then, a lot of topics have been already covered by my previous speakers, Dr. Suvarna and Dr. Radhika. So let us quickly see what are the tips and tricks for ethics in publication. Most people say that it is the intellect which makes a great scientist. They are wrong. It's a character. This was said by Albert Einstein. And we have to remember that it is your character that comes out in your publication, which is the most important aspect when you're looking at publishing. Now, publication ethics and best practice standards and settings. Our initiative and guidelines are there by many organizations like COPE, OASPA, WAME. These are the organizations which bring out various publication ethics. We at the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology of India, we are a member of COPE. COPE was founded in 1997 to address the breaches of research and publication ethics. It's a voluntary body providing a discussion forum and advice for the scientific editors. It aims to find practical ways of dealing with the issues with the ultimate aim of developing a good practice. So if for some reason some reviewer complains to me, or some author complains to me, or some author has a problem with the reviewer, or reviewer has a problem with how the author has addressed a particular subject. So all these issues, like somebody had used, to give you an example, instead of the COVID-19 virus, somebody had called it the China virus, and then somebody complained about it and had an issue. So if we editors want to know how to deal or how to go about this particular problem, then we put it to the COPE organization. They put us with various other editors who tell us how we can deal with it. But ultimately, the decision remains with the editor of that particular journal. So UGC, that is our body which is there for teaching, also has introduced the Consortium for Academic and Research Ethics. It is called as UGC CARE, Consortium for Academic and Research Ethics, and they say that 88% of journals in UGC's whitelist are predatory. They find the study, and they say India's scientific publication in predatory journals, it is a need for regulating the quality of Indian science and education. So it is very, very important that we stick to ethics. First and foremost, that we should not look at the journal itself, that it should not be a predatory journal when we are trying to look at publication. Now, this is a global predation. A sample of 1,907 papers in more than 200 supposed predatory journals were found that most of the articles come from India. Surprisingly, however, more than half of these papers have authors from higher income and upper middle income countries, but the data is from India. So we have to know that India's University Grants Commission released a list of recommended journals to counter the predators. So this is very, very important. Before you put a paper for publication, see if your journal is predatory, see if it is in the UGC list. And even in the NMC, the National Medical Council has also given a list of recommendation, how the type of the journals that you have to publish your articles. The common unethical research and publication practice and retraction of Indian literature. If you want to see that, the most common cause is plagiarism, which has already been talked to in detail by Suvarna, which is about 17.5 to 35%. Then fake data is about 30%. Duplicate publication, the author sends the same article to various journals. Error or mistakes, author dispute, adding more authors, removing authors, fake review process, copyright issues, and others. These are the common unethical research and publication practice in the retraction of Indian literature. Now, coming to the authorship, there is a first author, there is a co-author, and there is a corresponding author. All three authors get their required, they get whatever that is required for them, but each has got a specific role. The first author can be a corresponding author, and the corresponding author can be a first author, but co-author should have contributed significantly to research work and in preparing the manuscript. It is a conditioned role taxonomy who conceptualize the research. D is for data curation, formal analysis, funding acquisition, investigation, methodology, project administration. So these are all the topics on which an author can contribute. So who was a resource? Who brought the software? Who supervised the study? Is there validation of the study? Was there visualization of the outcome? Writing the original draft preparation and review and editing. So these are the examples of authors' contribution. Of the contribution. This is how it is written in all the journals. Even in our journal, it is written so-and-so formalized the study, so-and-so brought in funds, so-and-so wrote it. So an original draft was prepared. Everything is analyzed, each author's role in contribution to the article. Now, these are examples of author contribution So if you can see this, Indian contribution on SARS-CoV-2 virus, a bibliometric study of WHO COVID-19 database. So if you see that, you have to say that the author received no financial support for the study. The idea and design was by so-and-so. Then the data collection and draft designing was done by so-and-so. Revision was done by so-and-so. Finalization was done by both the authors. Declaration of competing interests, that there is no conflict of interest. You have the authors have to declare. All these is very required for all the journals. So there are a lot of unethical authorship practices like guest authorship. You give it to some seniors or gift the authorship, or even there are ghost authorships. We don't have time to go into detail, but these are all not ethical, and it is better to stay away from all these. Then plagiarism, one of the commonest type of research misconduct is a practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as your own. So it is derived from the word plagiarist, which means a kidnapper. So according to the Merriam-Webster online dictionary, to plagiarize means to steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own, to use another's production without crediting the source, to comment literary theft, to present as new and original an idea or product derived from an existing source. It is nothing but an act of fraud. It involves both stealing someone else's work and lying about it afterwards. So the authors have to be very, very careful about the plagiarism. Nowadays, we are getting software to detect the plagiarism. So there are common types of plagiarism. Complete plagiarism, submit another author's work in your name. Source-based plagiarism, references are incorrect or they are non-existent sourced. Direct plagiarism, copy text to text from another word. Self or auto plagiarism, use your own major part of your own work without attribution. Then paraphrasing plagiarism, make minor changes or use others' writings. Mosaic plagiarism, interlay someone else's phrases and text within your work. Accidental, inaccurate authorships. These are the common types of plagiarism. Now, you got a penalty each plagiarism in academic and research publications. If it is level 0 up to 10% similarity, minor similarities, no penalty. Level 1, that is 10 to 40%, shall be asked to withdraw the manuscript. Similarities above 40 to 60% shall be asked to withdraw the manuscript and shall be denied a right to increment, shall not be allowed to be a supervisor or have new students for MPhil, PhD for a period of 2 years. If there is level 3, that is similarity above 60%, shall be asked to withdraw the manuscript, shall be denied a right to 2 successive annual increment, and will not be allowed to have a student for a period of 3 years. So there is a penalty for plagiarism, depending on the level, whether it is level 0, level 1, level 2, or level 3. Please remember that. Then they should not do simultaneous submissions, submit to 2 journals, duplication or redundant publications, or salami or slicing publications, slicing single study into multiple fragments and develop multiple papers out of it. Believe me, this is also very, very common. These practices are prevalent in Indian academia for lack of awareness on publication ethics and the pressure to publish. Conflict of interest, that is competing interests. A conflict of interest exists in research when an individual, whether it is the author, the investigator, the editor, or the reviewer, has specific interest and which could affect his or her impartiality or maliciously influence his or her action. So there are a lot of research frauds like fabrication, making up data. Now people are writing more and more review articles. When they are writing review articles, we come to know that a lot of people don't have data, or actually if you ask them to give data, they said we have only stored it for 5 years. We don't have data more than that. Falsification, manipulating research materials, images, data, equipment, changing or omitting data in such a way to bring a particular result, and the research is not accurately represented in the research record. All these are research frauds. Now there is a retraction watch. If you go on the Google and see retractionwatch.com, you will be able to find all the papers that have been retracted, that is withdrawn or have been asked to withdraw. And if you see the reasons for this, you will come to know why each and every paper has been withdrawn. So here one of the author says, I needed a publication in order to submit my thesis. So author admits to stealing the manuscript. Similarly, there are a lot of reasons what the author has given why his particular article has been retracted. So please go on this retractionwatch.com. It will make you very, very wise as to why the article has been withdrawn, either by the author themselves, or they have been asked by the journal to withdraw. Once the publication is done, then they have been asked to withdraw. That is a very grave error. Now, there are a lot of predatory journals. We have to stop publishing in these predatory journals. We have to use appropriate indexing databases to select good journals. So it could be the Web of Science, Scopus, PubMed, Campbell's Journal Analytics, and UGC Care List. Be aware of fake journal metrics, advanced science index, that is Compost Impact Factor, Global Impact Factor, Index Copernicus. So they use lot of these words. No, these are jargons for the common people. So they try to fake their journal metrics and show how popular their journal is. But please recheck it without, before thinking to submit a paper in a journal. Verify with Think, Check, Submit checklist. There is a website which says thinkchecksubmit.org. So with this particular website, you can come to know which journals are predatory journals and which journals are good journals. It is called Think, Check, and Submit checklist. It will give you entire checklist about that particular journal, and then you can see that what they are saying is really true or not. Now, major international organizations and on research and publication ethics are there. I've already spoken about COPE, with the full form is the Committee on Publication Ethics. Our journal Jogi, we also are a member of this Committee on Publication Ethics. Then there is WAME, that is World Association of Medical Editors. Then ICMJE, International Committee of Medical Journals and Editors. Then there is CSC, Council of Science Editors, and EASC, that is European Association of Science Editors. All of them from time to time give us guidelines as how to improve the publication in the journal. And there are reporting guidelines also. Some of the major research reporting guidelines, like there are Prisma, Consult, Strobe, Moose, Starred. So we have to resort to one of these reporting guidelines. Very, very important to follow these guidelines when we submit a paper for the publication in the journal. What is the importance of publication ethics? Is it important? Yes. It enhances institutions and researchers' reputations. It opens doors for collaboration and funding bodies' interest. It attracts young researchers to institution and labs. It stops wastage of resources, that is time, effort, and money. It promotes ethical practices and encourages others to follow the suit. It stops dubious predatory journals and publishers. Societal institution recognition, awards, and awards you get, and provides facts and figures to counter fake news and narratives. So India's policy interventions. What is India's policy intervention on research ethics? So UGC, what do? That is, they promote academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism in higher educational institution. So it has come out with a UGC regulation in 2018 for the higher educational institution, and the focus areas are plagiarism and awareness on the academic integrity. All India Council for Technical Education, they have also come with promotion for academic integrity and excellence and prevention of plagiarism. Then there is Department of Science and Technology, DST. This is a very, very important department, and it has come up with many policy on the conflict of interest, persons applying for and receiving funding from DST, reviewers of proposals, and members of expert committee and program advisory committee. So they focus on conflict of interest and sanctions for misconduct. So there is an association of publishers in India, and they tell us what are the organizations and what are the various policies that these organizations have. We have our own ICMR, that is the Indian Council of Medical Research, which tell us national ethical guidelines or biomedical and health research involving the human participants. All biomedical, social, and behavioral science research for health conducted in India involving the human participants. So ICMR tells us what are the research ethics for biomedical research and human subjects. Then we have ICMR and Department of Biotechnology together. They brought the national guidelines for stem cell research. They say what are the ethical guidelines and research involving human stem cells and their derivatives. So we have all these various organizations in India which has come up with their own interventions for research ethics. Now, COVID-19 has found a lot of impact on scholarly communications. Because of COVID-19, we learned the relevance of science in everyday life. And it's an open science. Everybody started reading scientific journals, even the non-medical people. Data sharing and data interoperability became very, very important. Rapid access to research findings and lot of metrics, that is novel research metrics, and artificial intelligence is there in publishing in a very big way. We have to be aware of this. AI is there in publishing in a very big way, and we have to remember a preprint. Some people say, what is a preprint? A preprint is a version of your scientific manuscript posted on a public server prior to the formal peer review. As soon as it is posted, the preprint becomes a permanent part of the scientific record, citable with its own unique DOI. So there are a lot of preprint benefits: rapid dissemination of research results, establishing priority, increased attention and citations, career advancement, unlimited and timely updates. So preprints also you can consider having. Now, there are a lot of tips for medical writing and publication ethics checklist. Look for approval and consent of all your patients or ethical committee consent wherever required. Data accuracy, falsification and fabrication should be avoided. Plagiarism and self-plagiarism should be avoided. There should not be submission fraud. You should not submit in more than one journal. Authorship ethics has to be followed, and there should not be any conflict of interest. So artificial intelligence is here, and we had a recent forum discussion where we discussed about artificial intelligence and fake papers. It doesn't take much time to detect the fake papers. Artificial intelligence helps us to immediately detect the data discrepancies, and it will immediately point towards the fake papers. So we have to be very, very careful. Like Dr. Swarna, there has to be a high level of commitment to have your papers published. Know your audience. Who is going to read it? Is it a common gynecologist, or is it specialized people? Is it the general practitioner? How to use the social media? Listen how other scientists prepare their work. Network with scientists, and you can ask for feedback. Ask your colleagues, ask your seniors, ask other scientists to how do they feel about your work. Get involved with scientific organizations. Create opportunities and practice public speaking. Organize scientific meetings. Identify and enroll in scientific activities. Collaborate with other scientists. And last but not the least, pace yourself. Please don't overcommit. You will not be able to do justice to your papers and to your scientific research. So in short, a publication ethics short summary of the main point, we have to have a pre-publication checklist. We have to see that it is original and unpublished. Are there enough new material not submitted to any other journal or conferences? Do all the authors agree on the paper? There is to be no conflict of interest. What is the source of your funding? And what are the individual authorship contributions towards the paper? So this we need to be very clear on before accepting the particular paper. Thank you for a patient hearing. Thank you, and I am happy to take any questions.
It was such a vast topic, but thank you so much. You covered all the important points in such a short time. And yes,
it was really an eye-opener. Madam Anahita ma'am, kindly give your expert comments.
She has some problem with her volume.
Okay.
Is she there?
Then,
yeah, she's there,
yes,
but
she
we
is there.
can't hear her.
We can't hear.
Dr. Gupte.
So sorry.
Dr.
Yes.
Gupte is there, sir.
Please, your comment on the Gita's talk and also all the talks. Gupte sir.
I think it was a wonderful, learning experience, and Dr. Geeta actually, such important aspect, of ethics, because everywhere now, these issues are coming up more and more, and as publications increase, we are facing, more problems of such type, and it's a real learning for everyone that what we can do, how we can learn, how we can get out of these traps. And I think it's as I mentioned, wonderful exposition. Both, Aparna and Geeta being the experts in the field for FOGSI, I think their experience shows when they speak really from the heart on, these issues. Overall, I think Dr. Lakshmi Dr. Radhika, I think wonderful, program, and I really loved being here, liked it, and learned quite a few things also. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for your words of appreciation. It means a lot to the Research Methodology Webinar Series Committee. And thank you, sir, for being with us. And may I have the comments of Lakshmi, ma'am?
Yeah, so just as Gupte sir said, I also learned a lot, and all the speakers were so crystal clear. They gave practical take-home messages, and I also learned a lot. I'm sure all the delegates who logged in, they must have learned very important points as far as the publishing tips and tricks are concerned. So thank you all the speakers, chairpersons, conveners and co-conveners, and of course the audience for logging in for this web series.
So finally, we come to the end of this extremely important and informative webinar for everyone who wants to get his or her paper published. So dear viewers, just remember all the valuable tips and tricks from our master speakers and extremely learned chairpersons if you want to publish your article successfully. So finally, it's time for the, yes, ma'am. So finally, it's time for formal vote of thanks, I think. Radhika, ma'am?
Yeah, please.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make this announcement that the next one is going to be on guideline development, because we are all focusing on good clinical practice recommendations. It is now time for our country to go to the next level, and that is to develop guidelines, the formal, proper guidelines. So next one in June is going to be focusing on the process of guideline development. Request everybody to please join in.
So so finally, final vote of thanks. In fact, publications are extremely important as they help to preserve your work in the permanent records of research in the field. Today's theme, publication tips and tricks, is extremely important for every academician, as publishing their data will definitely help in compounding various guidelines. So thank you, Dr. Lakshmi Shikhande ma'am, Dr. Radhika ma'am, Dr. Parag Biniwale sir, and Dr. Ashok Kumar sir for organizing today's webinar. For all the faculty members of different medical colleges, PG students, research fellows, other clinicians and PG students as well. And my most sincere thanks goes to all our stalwart, FOGSI stalwarts who came as speakers today. Dr. Suvarna Khadalkar ma'am, Dr. Geeta Balsarkar ma'am, Dr. Radhika ma'am, and ICMR experts, Dr. P. Ganesh Kumar and Dr. Prabhadeep Kaur for very informative presentations. And my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Sanjay Gupta sir, Manju Puri ma'am, Abharani Sinha ma'am, Madhuri Patil ma'am, and Anahita Chauhan ma'am for making both the sessions so lively and interactive as our esteemed chairpersons. And my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Radhika ma'am and Dr. Vaishali Nayak for putting me in front to conduct this webinar. Finally, a big thank you to all the participants and Nilima, Mitali, and Jignesh from ICOG office for success of today's webinar. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I think we can take. Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye. So we can end the meeting now.